The art of a good practical joke. In the execution of a good practical joke, you have to be able to carry it out without causing injury to your target. Causing injury to your target during a practical joke is susceptible to legal action, such as assault or something to that nature. Know your target. If you think your target is the violent type of person, you may want to think about a new target. Know if your target has a sense of humor and can take a joke in stride and get a good laugh out of it in the end. If you think they cannot, you might want to think about a new target. Know how you're going to execute your practical joke. Conduct a little bit of research on it, something like you would for a speech or a research paper or anything you have to write. In setting up a practical joke, you want to make sure you have the required material. Attempting to carry it out without the proper material is destined to fail. When gathering material, you also want to garner some support from others. For example, many years ago, I carried out a practical joke that required a welder, an electrician, a prop man, and hierarchy. The practical joke was while I was in the Navy many years ago. We had a new officer report to the ship. He was rather green behind the ears and very, very gullible. The ship was sailing off the coast of Russia with normal maneuvers. The new officer was assigned to my division, and in keeping with tradition, I gave him a tour of the engine rooms he would be responsible for. As we were walking through the engine rooms, I was pointing out key equipment such as evaporator, generator, fuel pump. He looked down into the bilges and asked me, "Hey, what's that shiny thing?" Well, me, without thinking about it much at all, I just looked at him and said it was a landmine. Well, his response was, "Well, why do we need a landmine on a ship?" Well, I told him that was a good question and told him if we ever get boarded, it's our responsibility to blow the ship up so no secrets would fall into the hands of others, which is very believable. Well, the hook was baited and the setup was ready to begin. I went and talked to one of the welders and asked him to make me a lockbox. I gave him the dimensions needed. I also asked him to make me a plate that would fit over the top of this landmine and have a few wires running out of it to make it look realistic. Next, I went and talked to my electrician and asked him to make me a box that when I push the button on this box, a light on this one would illuminate. Next, I went and talked to the chief engineer because I had to have hierarchy support. And as I'm laying out my plan to the chief engineer, he began to laugh. Well, as he's beginning to laugh, I'm thinking to myself, hey, this is good. And then come to find out, the chief engineer went and talked to the ship's captain. Now we had hierarchy support. Okay, the last step was to get a prop man, somebody who could drop a large pipe wrench from the upper level of an engine room down to the lower level on this aluminum plating. So all parties were set. Everybody knew their job. Everybody knew their mission as far as how to execute their piece of the pie. Now, in the execution of this joke, it had to seem realistic, and the conditions had to be right in order to be believable. It took about a week for all conditions to be right, and as the ship sailed, we began to conduct internal engine room drills. However, over the loudspeaker, you did not hear the word drill come out, which would be normal operating procedures. So everybody in the engine room is carrying out their specific part of this drill as if it were a real scenario. Finally, after about 25 minutes of this drill, the word abandoned ship came over the loudspeaker. The new officer's first reaction was to, well, I'm going up to my life raft. Well, as he's getting ready to walk up the stairs and go to his life raft, I grabbed his arm and I told him, I said, well, that ain't the way it works. We got to blow the engine. We got to blow the ship up. And he was a little astonished and his face filled with fear. Now, as I took the key out of my pocket and walked to the lockbox, the one that was just recently made, and I took out the plate, and I took out the little electrical box that looked like a detonator, and we walked to the landmine. and set up the landmine and stepped back. I asked the young officer if he had any last words he wanted to say. And the only thing that came to his mind is, I'm too young to die. I garnered a small tear and I told him I am too. But I hit the button anyway, and down came this extremely large pipe wrench, crashing down in a thunderous noise. As the audience assembled on the upper level of the engine room, the young officer looked at me, and I was laughing so hard I had tears running down my face. And as he made his way up the stairs and saw the audience, that included the chief engineer and the ship's captain, it was revealed that the young officer had wet himself. Now the execution was flawless. Now the follow-up had to begin. And in the follow-up, I talked to the young officer and told him what the true use of the landmine was, and further told him that there would be no more practical jokes carried out on him. Now he was initially very angry, but after looking back on it and bringing his heart rate back down to normal after a couple days, he realized that we were just attempting to make him part of the team, and he accepted the joke in stride.